October 31st, a night of costumes, fire and fear. But the story of Halloween begins not in America. It begins 2,000 years ago, in the misty lands of the ancient Celts, with a festival called Samhain. In the ancient Celtic world, time was not a straight line, but a turning wheel. The year was divided into two halves, the light and the dark. And the most significant turning point, the moment that marked the end of the bountiful summer and the descent into the long, cold night of winter, was the festival of Samhain. Pronounced Samhain, its name meant summer's end. This was the final, most crucial harvest, a time to gather the last of the crops from the fields and bring the livestock down from their summer pastures into the safety of their enclosures. It was a period of profound transition, where the vibrant life of the land seemed to wither and die, giving way to the encroaching darkness and frost. The Celts felt this shift, not just in the air, but in the very fabric of their existence. But Samhain was more than just a seasonal marker. It was a moment of cosmic instability, a time that belonged to neither the old year nor the new. The Celts believed that during this liminal night, the veil that separated our world from the other world, the realm of gods, spirits and the dead, grew dangerously thin. This wasn't a gentle parting, but a complete dissolution of the boundary between the tangible and the spectral, the living and the dead. Inside their homes, families would extinguish their hearth fires, plunging their homes into a symbolic darkness that mirrored the world outside. They would then wait for the Druid priests to light a great sacred bonfire, from which every family would relight their own hearth, a communal act of purification and protection against the coming winter. With the barrier gone, the souls of the departed could cross over, walking among the living once more. It was a time for remembrance, when families would set a place at their table for deceased loved ones, hoping for a peaceful visit. But not all spirits were welcome. The Aosi, the powerful and often capricious fairy folk, also roamed the land, capable of causing mischief or worse. To ward off these malevolent entities and to disguise themselves from wandering spirits, people would wear costumes and masks, hoping to blend in with the otherworldly travellers. Offerings of food and drink were left out to appease the spirits and ensure the safety of the community and their livestock through the harsh winter. It was a night of both reverence and fear, a sacred communion with the dead under the shadow of the supernatural. As the sun set on the final day of the harvest, the heart of every Celtic community was the bonfire. These were not mere celebrations, they were profound rituals, sacred flames ignited by Druid priests to honour the sun god and guide the transition into the dark half of the year. Villages gathered around these great fires, their flames a beacon of light and warmth against the encroaching cold. It was believed these sacred flames held protective and cleansing powers, a magical barrier meant to ward off the malevolent spirits that roamed freely on this night. The fire was a symbol of hope and community. Villagers would extinguish the hearths in their own homes, and as the Samhain rituals concluded, each family would take an ember from the communal bonfire to relight their own hearth, carrying the protective flame back to their households to see them through the long, dark winter. But fire alone was not enough to ensure one's safety. The veil between worlds was at its thinnest, and the spirits of the dead, both benevolent and wicked, were believed to walk among the living. To venture out after dark was to risk an encounter. So the people adopted a clever form of spiritual camouflage. They began the practice of guising, donning costumes and masks made from animal skins, heads and straw. The purpose was twofold: to confuse any wandering ghosts or fairies, making the living appear as fellow spirits, and to embody the very nature of the otherworldly beings they feared, hoping to fool them into leaving them unharmed. Alongside these acts of disguise were acts of appeasement. To placate the spirits and honour the souls of departed ancestors, offerings of food and drink were left on doorsteps and roadsides. A place was often set at the dinner table for a deceased relative, a welcoming gesture for the friendly dead. This tradition of offering sustenance was a plea for a peaceful night, a bargain with the unseen world to ensure the household would be passed over by any lingering malevolence. In these ancient practices, the protective fires, the spectral disguises, and the offerings left for wandering souls, we find the unmistakable origins of our own Halloween traditions. The costumes we wear and the treats we share are echoes of a time when the night was filled with genuine fear and survival depended on ritual. In the heart of Celtic mythology, the night of Samhain did not belong to mortals. It was a sacred, terrifying time when the very fabric of reality grew thin, and the boundaries between our world and the other world dissolved into mist and shadow. This was the night that belonged to the gods of death and fate, ancient powers who walked the earth, their presence a chilling reminder of the eternal cycles of life, decay, and rebirth. They were not merely spectres of fear, but the divine arbiters of destiny, their influence felt in the rustle of every dead leaf and the howl of the wind through the barren trees. Chief among these formidable figures was Arawn, the enigmatic king of Annwn, the Celtic otherworld. On this night he would ride forth from his subterranean kingdom, leading a terrifying procession across the heavens known as the Wild Hunt. He was accompanied by his spectral hounds, the Cubion Annwn. These were no ordinary beasts. They were described as having gleaming white coats and blood-red ears, their chilling, otherworldly howls echoing through the valleys. To hear their cry was a terrifying omen, a sound that could curdle the blood and signal that a soul was about to be gathered from the mortal plane and escorted into the great beyond. But Arawn was not the only power to hold sway over the mortal coil. The Morrigan, the great and terrible Phantom Queen, also claimed Samhain as her own. A complex and shape-shifting deity, she was the goddess of battle, strife, and prophecy. On the eve of conflict, she would roam the battlefield, sometimes as a beautiful woman, sometimes as a shrieking hag, and often as a carrion crow, circling high above the fray. Her presence was a harbinger of doom, a sign that the scales of fate were being weighed. With a gaze that could see the threads of destiny, she moved among the warriors, unseen, choosing who would live to see the next sunrise and who would fall, their lifeblood soaking into the cold earth. She did not cause their deaths, but rather prophesied them, her whispers on the wind a final, grim benediction for the chosen. To encounter the Morrigan was to look into the eyes of one's own mortality and accept the unchangeable verdict of fate. These were the gods of Samhain, powerful, impartial, and deeply woven into the natural order. To the Celts, this festival wasn't just a harvest celebration or a precursor to winter. It was a profound and necessary confrontation with destiny itself, a night to honor the darkness, to respect the dead, and to acknowledge the awesome, untamable powers that governed the turning of the world. As Christianity spread through the Celtic lands, Samhain was rebranded as All Hallows' Eve, the night before All Saints' Day. Over centuries, the sacred fires dimmed, and the rituals turned into the Halloween we know today. But the old magic never truly died. Every flame, every mask, every whisper in the dark still carries the echo of Samhain, the night when the veil grows thin and the dead remember the living.